You'd think an HOA would know better than to pick a fight on a lake I actually own. But not Sophie Ward. It was a Saturday morning when she marched down my dock like she was leading the Marines, sunglasses on, clipboard raised, and a tow truck driver trailing behind her looking like he already regretted waking up. "That boat is too big. It blocks community access. Remove it immediately," she barked. I stood on my porch, coffee in hand, watching the circus unfold, and then one of her board members slipped straight into the shallows. The crowd erupted in laughter. Sophie went beet red, slapped a violation sticker on my boat, and it immediately stuck to her own shoe. Right then, my brother, Sheriff Tom, showed up and calmly asked if she had paperwork. She didn't. That was the moment I knew something bigger was coming. The HOA had been trespassing on my lake, and they were about to learn the hard way. Mornings on the lake smell like cedar and cold stone, the kind of air that wakes your bones. Peace here is a choice. Kids fish off the docks, teenagers paddle pretending they're fearless, and old-timers swap stories. My grandfather's promise was simple: respect the lake, and the lake gives back. Sophie never understood that. Her world was made of bylaws, memos, and fonts so small they should require a microscope. But this water? It doesn't care about clipboards. It cares about character. When I was 14, my grandfather handed me a sealed envelope at the boundary marker. "Some folks confuse paperwork with power, but water remembers," he said. Years later, after he passed, that envelope joined the family deed in my old desk, a deed older than most houses in town, filled with riparian rights, hand-drawn surveys, and a century of family history. For decades, I kept the lake open and friendly. I fixed motors, lent paddles, hauled trash. But then the HOA grew teeth, or at least thought they did. Sophie rose to power with all smiles and zero soul. Letters turned to citations. Neighbors brought screenshots, recordings, and copies of HOA demands. I remembered my grandfather's lesson. When someone attacks with paperwork, you answer with paperwork. I gathered certified deeds, boundary maps, surveys, the works. The HOA's boundary line wasn't even close to reality. A dotted line can't jump over private property, not even if Sophie yells at it. Then, a call from the banker about the failing marina revealed leverage hidden in decades-old agreements. Real power, quiet but absolute. Sophie kept firing emails claiming my boat was unsafe, my dock obstructed community visibility, and that my Coast Guard registration did not reflect subdivision values. I sent her one simple thing: a photocopy of my deed. "Your jurisdiction ends where my property line begins." By the next weekend, her tow truck disaster had become local legend. The sticker-on-shoe incident was viral, yet Sophie doubled down, bringing reinforcements. Board members, a cameraman, and a nervous tow truck driver. She demanded cooperation, claimed authority over a so-called community view corridor, and tried slapping another sticker on my boat, again stuck to her heel. Sheriff Tom stepped in, calm but firm. "Sophie, this is your last warning. Step on this dock again without a legal order, and you're trespassing." The crowd cheered, videos rolled, and I smiled. The lake remembers. Trouble returned like clockwork. Sophie came back with legal counsel and cameras, declaring full HOA jurisdiction over the lake. I smiled. It was exactly what I needed. Then the rumble of a white van changed everything. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary stepped out. "Morning," the lead officer said. "We got a report of an unauthorized maritime seizure attempt." Sophie's face went pale. "Who called you?" "I did," I said. "Figured someone claiming federal water rights should meet the people who actually enforce them." The Coast Guard officer turned to Sophie. "Ma'am, are you attempting to immobilize this vessel? This isn't maritime law. It's community regulation." She snapped. The officer raised an eyebrow. "Community rules don't override private docks or navigable waters. Do you have county documentation?" Robert Clean, her lawyer, frantically flipped through a binder, revealing HOA printouts and what looked like a Wikipedia article. The officer sighed. "This isn't legal documentation. You have no authority here." Kids started fishing her soggy papers out of the lake with sticks, reading them aloud like lost treasure maps. Finally, the officer turned to me. "Mr. Sanders, your paperwork checks out. This dock and vessel are entirely your private property." I nodded and offered, "Coffee's hot if you want some." He chuckled. As the Coast Guard left, the crowd erupted in cheers. Sophie tried to storm off, but wet heels and dignity don't mix. She slipped, arms windmilling, and the glorious slow-motion clip went viral overnight. By morning, 500,000 views, local news coverage, memes, and even businesses joined in on the joke. For the first time, the HOA wasn't feared, it was laughed at. While the neighborhood celebrated, Sophie stewed. By Tuesday, she even tried renegotiating the HOA loan, unaware that escrow had closed under my new LLC, Blue Cedar Holdings, giving me control of the marina and all the property tied to her HOA. That evening, Tom and I watched the lake glow in sunset gold. "You ever notice some people are allergic to learning?" I asked. "Sophie? She's not allergic. She's immune," Tom said, grinning. Grandpa's words echoed. The calmest water hides the deepest current. And that current was finally shifting. Sophie wasn't swimming anymore, she was sinking. Thursday night, flyers hit mailboxes announcing her community emergency meeting at the marina, the very property she now owed me money for. I posted my own announcement. Community barbecue at the same time, free food, family music, on the marina dock. By Saturday, my side of the lake looked like a festival, grills smoking, music playing, people dancing. Sophie's convoy rolled in like an invading army. SUVs, a news van, and a desperate banner declaring, "Reclaim our community waters." She shouted through a megaphone about standards and community property, but the band drowned her out. When she waved her official letter claiming HOA jurisdiction, I examined it, and the seal was crooked, the signature suspiciously her own handwriting. Laughter erupted. Tom stepped in. Distributing falsified legal documents is a crime. The crowd roared as her black SUV got hooked to a tow truck. "Don't worry, ma'am," the driver winked. "Enforcing the new property owner's request. Blue Cedar Holdings. That's my LLC. Marina and dock now mine," I said, holding the deeds and mortgage paperwork for all cameras to see. She sputtered. She screamed, but the lake and the community chose me. Sophie's attempts to save face failed spectacularly. Emails went unopened. Memes flooded social media. By Monday, she quietly stewed while I enjoyed calm mornings, the lake reflecting golden sunlight. Midweek, the HOA filed a lawsuit claiming unlawful possession and harassment. I chuckled. Harassment? Barely raised my voice. 2 weeks later, the courthouse packed. Neighbors, families, even the local bar owner showed up. Sophie sat front and center, papers stacked high, her lawyer flustered. Judge Whitaker entered, a man who'd fished this lake with my grandfather decades ago. Opening statements flew. "Your Honor, he violates community laws," Sophie stammered. Newsletters, crayon maps, bylaw excerpts were submitted. No legal deeds, no county records. When asked for my evidence, Grace Holloway presented notarized deeds, surveys, and the marina mortgage note under my LLC. Judge Whitaker flipped to my grandfather's signature. Recognition flickered in his eyes. Laughter erupted as Sophie tried to argue ownership. "Issuing fines doesn't prove ownership," the judge declared. Finally, the lake is privately owned by Mr. Sanders. Why overstep? Case dismissed with prejudice. HOA to pay all fees and damages. Mr. Sanders may restrict access immediately. Further attempts equals trespassing. Cheers shook the courthouse. That night, on the porch with Tom, the lake still and glassy, I replayed the gavel's sound. Bang! Justice, like thunder, clears the air better than any storm. The HOA was finished. Sophie? People like her never sink quietly. They flail first, and the town was watching. The lake was mine, the community happy, and for once, peace reigned. The morning of the final eviction arrived with sun spilling across the lake like molten brass and mist drifting lazily above the water. Sheriff Tom arrived with deputies. The Coast Guard cut through the lake orderly, and families, retirees, and kids all gathered along the docks. Tom handed me the sign notice. Lakeview HOA barred from all access, management, or influence over Lake Sanders and adjoining properties. I looked over the calm lake. Looks like we've got ourselves a clean lake again. Tom grinned. Cleaner than her reputation. We laughed. Down by the marina, deputies were unloading boxes containing everything the HOA had used to decorate its empire of control: laminated rules, fine signs, folders of citations, even leftover violation stickers Sophie had printed in bulk. By 10 a.m., the crowd swelled, the smell of barbecue floated through the morning air, and music played. Relief rippled through the community. Not anger, not a parade, just people reclaiming the breath they'd long held. And then a familiar voice broke the calm. This is an illegal gathering. Sophie Ward stormed down the path in her signature pink blazer, hair wild, folder clutched like a shield. Behind her, the last of her board trailed, faces drained and defeated. Tom muttered, "Here we go again," and stepped down the dock. "You have no right to do this. The HOA is still active. This is community land," Sophie shouted. Tom held up the court order. "Actually, ma'am, it's not. Judge Whitaker signed this himself. Your HOA has no jurisdiction here anymore." Sophie screeched about evicting associations, harassment, and conspiracies. I walked down slowly, calm as the morning itself. "Sophie, you might want to stop shouting. People can hear you at the diner by now." Her eyes blazed. "You think this is over, Carl? One crooked judge and a piece of paper doesn't mean you've won." I held up my coffee. "No, I think I've won because I read the law. You should try it sometime." Her face flushed crimson. "I'll sue again. Be my guest. Just make sure your filing fee clears this time." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Cleansing, not cruel. Even some of her former board members chuckled in disbelief. Tom stepped forward formally. "Mrs. Ward, by order of the court, you are hereby instructed to vacate the marina property and cease all HOA activity related to this lake. Failure to comply will result in arrest for trespassing." Sophie saw deputies stepping closer and finally, reluctantly, her fight drained from her shoulders. Her shrill protests faded with every step. "This is my lake," she whispered. "No," I said softly. "It never was. You just rented other people's fear and called it authority." Deputies began the symbolic part of the eviction, stacking boxes of confiscated HOA materials at the dock's edge. 2 Coast Guard officers stepped forward, carrying buckets of lake water, and poured it over the stack. The ink ran like melted mascara, dissolving into black streaks, leaving the wood clean. The crowd erupted. A little girl perched on her father's shoulders began chanting, "Freedom Lake! Freedom Lake!" Soon, 100 voices joined in. Music played, clapping followed, and for the first time in years, the dock was filled with laughter. Not rules, not fines, just joy. Investors who had once tried to acquire HOA water rights approached nervously, only to be reminded that all rights belonged to me under my grandfather's deed. By noon, deputies packed up, the Coast Guard saluted, sheriff's cruiser lights flicked off, and the community had officially reclaimed the lake. Tom laughed. "Never seen a crowd cheer for paperwork before." I smiled. "Guess they've seen enough bad ones." That evening, the lake came alive with strings of lights, music echoing across the water, boats drifting lazily under the moon. Kids chased fireflies. Neighbors swapped stories of HOA horror and sweet revenge. Jim raised a beer. "Carl, you did it, man." "No, we did it. I just read the fine print," I replied. Laughter rippled through the crowd, healing old wounds. Later, alone on the dock, I watched the lanterns float on the water, the reflection of stars trembling like heartbeat. Tom joined me. "You think she'll ever come back?" I smiled faintly. "If she does, she'll find out the hard way. This lake doesn't forget." The wind stirred the water. Peace had weight. The lake shimmered, calm and untamed. Neighbors brought iced tea, Music, cookies. Kids skipped stones. I didn't realize how much fear we'd gotten used to, Jim said. Weekly letters, fines, violations. We forgot what quiet felt like. Linda strummed her guitar. And Sophie made us believe she was doing us a favor. I nodded. Control only works if people forget they can say no. It was never about owning it. It's about protecting it. Grandpa said, "You can't own something you love. You just take care of it so it can outlive you." Later, Tom asked about officially opening the lake. I pointed to the new sign. Lake Sanders, welcome neighbors. Respect the water. Respect each other. No joa. No nonsense. Tom smirked. She tried to file an appeal. Evidence? Memes from Facebook. I laughed. Still fighting ghosts, and losing to them too. As night fell, lanterns floated on the water. Voices mingled with crickets, music, and waves. Sophie Ward, somewhere, probably plotted her next illusion of control, but the lake didn't care. It belonged to no one, and in that freedom it belonged to everyone. Victory wasn't fines overturned, lawsuits dismissed, or evictions completed. Victory was a community remembering how to live without fear. I whispered to the empty lake, "Freedom isn't owning the water, it's keeping it clear." And deep beneath the calm surface, I swear, the water answered back. If you enjoyed watching Sophie Ward get her comeuppance and the community taking the lake back, give this video a like, drop a comment with your favorite moment, share the story with friends, and be sure to subscribe to Neighbor Wars HQ so you won't miss the next epic neighborhood showdown.